Kia ora, and welcome to another video of mine, Mystic Wall of Home video. I think that's what my channel's called. I'm Amanda, and today I'm going to be talking to you about 6 basic exercises and how to maintain your creative and spiritual needs while being an active mother. I was going to start with a whole bunch of preamble about my experiences as a mother and why the 6 basic exercises are so needed, but I think I'm just going to kick straight into what the 6 basic exercises are and how you can do them while being on mum duty. And then afterwards I might go into a little bit about motherhood as initiation or whatnot, but yeah, I think it's important to just get straight into the meat. So Rudolf Steiner developed these exercises when he was living life, doing his thing, being all spiritual and stuff. A big teaching of his that I really appreciate is that he says, and lots of spiritual teachers say this too, so it's not just Steiner, but he says that it's really important in our age now that we do our inner work while still being integrated in a community and society. Our inner work should never usurp our responsibilities and our role within a community. And I think that's cool because I think there's a tendency sometimes to, especially as parents, it feels like it's kind of an either or thing. I don't know if you felt like that, but I have. I felt like I can either be a mum that's present for Phoenix today, or I'm going to like focus on my spiritual stuff or my art or whatever. But I never really integrated them both, which wasn't a great thing because then I ended up resenting my poor little fellow for being a 3-year-old or 2-year-old or a 1-year-old, needing what he needed from me. But my inner life and my spiritual life was suffering because I wasn't nourishing it. And to be the best mother I can be, I need to be working with that. But I was finding it really difficult to balance the both of them. And so after I talked to Tiffany Singh, who's a New Zealand artist who now lives in London, she's a mother of 2 beautiful young children, and she just works with them. And she was talking about how important it is to have community around while you're raising children, and actually to bring the children with you into the work, and actually the children end up becoming part of that artistic process, and it all becomes interlinked and part of it. I'll put a link to the podcast in the notes below. It was a good one. So I was thinking about that in regards to spiritual practice, and what kind of things in the past monks or spiritual aesthetics, you know what I mean, spiritual people went through to achieve that inner development. Some, not eating or doing physical things that were harmful, or just doing a monotonous task for years and years and years, kind of to push through all of that pain, discomfort or whatever, and to develop that inner life through those channels. Now, I'm not comparing being a mother to like starving yourself or going through those kinds of practices, but being a mother is really hard work. You've got, sleep deprivation. You've got somebody that always needs stuff from you when you don't quite have the energy to give it all the time. There's a lot of monotony in terms of doing the, keeping on top of the washing and the dishes. And of course, fathers are there to do that too. But I'm talking as my experience as a mother. The wanting, the same puzzles or all that kind of stuff. It can be monotonous, but I mean, it's also wonderful. But there are challenges that come with motherhood, and I think that these 6 basic exercises not only help us work on our own inner self, but help us become better mothers, and you'll see why. So anywho, there's this book called Health No Higher Worlds, written by Rudolf Steiner, and in it he gives indications of what to do for the 6 basic exercises. It's not like 1, do this. 2, do this. It's kind of like filtered throughout the whole book. And the thing I like about him is that he writes in a way that makes you work for that knowledge. He just doesn't hand it to you on a silver platter. However, there have been authors who have done a lot of work and do give you something on a silver platter. Like this guy called Florian Lowndes, and he wrote Enlivening the Chakras of the Heart. And this is like a really practical, very good guide on how to do the 6 basic exercises. So I'm taking my inspiration from these guys and I've changed it and mixed it up to suit mums or parents. And so the 6 basic exercises are, let me get my notes up. We have, oh, and I should mention the actual point of these 6 basic exercises. So they aren't really meditations, but they are more to be thought of as like a soul workout or what's it called, or like mindfulness practice. What you're doing here is strengthening your soul forces so that as you become more spiritually awake or have more interactions with the spiritual world, however that looks for you, you are able to become more discerning, and there's a level of protection around you, because there are some beings or thoughts or entities, energies that exist in the spiritual world that don't have our best interest at heart, and they can manifest through their ideas, and everything can manifest through people or whatever. But I mean, these practices help you to be more discerning in regards to that stuff, but also more open to the messages that the spirit has to offer. And yeah, so that's my little explanation on them, but there's a lot more to it, and I recommend you read those 2 books. At the very least, give this book a go. Ooh, backwards reading, but it's really good. All Steiner stuff is good. You should read it all. Go on. Right, now, so control of thinking, control of will, and control of feeling. Then we have positivity, open-mindedness, and then the 6th one is harmony, where you do them all together. And in the past, I've done these, I've done like 1 a week, and I've also done them, I've done 1 every month. So I've done it over a period of 6 weeks and over a period of 6 months. And at the moment, I'm kind of just waking up in the morning and focusing on 1, which I'm not sure if that's the right way to do it, but that's what I'm doing it. That's the way I'm doing it. Yeah, so if I were you, I'd probably start by go through and do 1 a day for 6 days, just to get a feel of what each activity is. And then I would do 1 a week, and then I would space it out and do 1 every 6 months. Oh, every 6 months, 1 every month. And then after that point, just kind of see if you can, you might want to go back to doing 1 every day. You might want to go back to doing a whole another 6-month round. But the point is to just kind of keep doing it, no matter how you do it, just do it. That harmony one, I think, over a period of time, you don't need to do them all separately, because ideally you're integrating it all so that every day you can practice all 6 of them. And it doesn't mean you do it perfectly every day, but it means you are endeavoring to try, and you endeavor to do it. Even if you just do it to the best of your ability, just try. And if you forget to do it one day, don't worry about it. Tomorrow's another day. Just keep going. Just never give up. So the first one is all right thinking. This is about using your will to focus your thoughts and not be all flibbity-jibbity about your thoughts. And it's about using your power of thought to think objectively about one thing for a sustained period of time. And that's really difficult. I find it difficult. So it's about spending about 5 minutes a day with all your focused attention on one object. And I'm actually wearing my hair tie in my hair, but usually I have a hair tie around my wrist. And I find focus as a mum, doing this mum styles, if you do it with an object that's always on your person, like if you've got a ring or wear a hair tie around your wrist or in your hair all the time, use that as your object. But I was doing like a pencil, and I've done a pin and all those other kinds of things, but I found that because obviously I don't carry a pencil around with me all the time, I don't always wear pockets, and a pin, again, same thing. Actually using the hair tie is great because one, it's a super boring object, and so that's kind of what you're looking for. Find something that's really boring and kind of irrelevant to your life to a certain degree. And yeah, two, it's always on me, so I can do this 5 minutes of right thinking anywhere. Like if I'm out at the park with Phoenix and he's like really engaged in the sandpit and I'm near him, of course, but I can just do my 5 minutes of thinking about the hair tie then. Or if I'm at the supermarket, just about to go into the supermarket, 5 minutes then. I can do it at nighttime while he's going to sleep next to me. If he's, if he's going to sleep next to me, I can do it then. It's all about doing it at those points, like, and letting it, the occasion just spontaneously arrive. And so the point of that too is to just think about the thing. So as the hair tie, you think about what's it made of, what does it feel like, where was it made, how was it made, what are the other kinds of things that have existed throughout time to tie up people's hair, where did this come from, where did I buy it, what packet did it come in, all those things that feel a name. And it's really difficult to focus for 5 minutes on the same object. The more boring, kind of the better. Right, the second one, control of will. So a lot of people do an exercise that Steiner mentions, and it's doing a really insignificant action at a random time of the day. So touch your nose at 11:41, or click your fingers 3 times at 7 o'clock. And the point of it is to, again, do something don't do something that's like have a drink of water, because that's something that you actually need. The point of this is to do something that you don't need, and actually it makes no difference to your life whether you touch your nose or not. But the fact that you're engaging your will to remember to do that is the training. And I'm terrible at the time one. Like, I think I've gotten it 3 times, and all the times that I've practiced it, like I've probably tried to do it 150 times and I've done it 3 times. I always miss the timing. And there are other things you can do for it too while you're parenting. And I like to do one where I choose a consonant in Phoenix's book, so like a T. And I make a real effort when I'm reading his story, every time there's a T, to overpronounce it, like over-articulate it. So I'm really saying the don't at the end of each word that has a T on it. And again, that makes no difference to anyone's life really, except for the fact that I'm willing myself to do something that actually doesn't really matter, but I'm building up that will force to not be intrinsically linked to my emotions and my desires and my wants. I can kind of make myself do what I want to make myself do, and that's important. So there's that. And then there's control of feeling, and this is one that is super important as a parent. Well, it's as important as a human, but this isn't about suppressing emotions or repressing them. This is about observing emotions for what they are and trying to find a balance between 2 extremes. So it relates to both like joy and depression or upset or anger or whatnot. So when you find yourself in those moments where you're super frustrated or you're like elated with joy, step back, find a way to step back and observe what it is that you're elated or frustrated with, and try and find a way to bring yourself into like acknowledging that feeling and accepting the message that it's bringing to you. But you can kind of balance it out so that you're not driven, your actions aren't driven by the heightened emotional state. You acknowledge it for what it is, you bring it into balance, and then you, from a place of calm, you can make a decision moving forward. And a way to do that as a parent is to, and this is from this book actually, is to have a think at the beginning of the week about something you do when you're feeling a certain emotion. Are you a nail biter when you get nervous, or do you bite your lip when you're getting frustrated? Or I rub my face a lot if I'm feeling like frustrated or annoyed. Yeah, try and find, or do you swear when you're angry or anything like that? And then try during that week when you feel yourself getting frustrated, so you start biting your lip. Stop, notice that you're biting your lip. Stop, acknowledge what it is that you're feeling, and then see if you can bring yourself into a remove yourself from that emotion, and see if you can objectively decide what your next action is, whether it's to tell your kids that they need to go outside and run around for a bit, or do you need to go outside and run around for a bit, or do we need to do some baking, or is it time for story, or is it time that mum needs some quiet time and you guys need to go and do you know what I mean? So you can objectively decide what the next course of action is without coming to that through response and through anger or annoyance, if that makes sense. And positivity. This is actually my favorite one, because I always find that when I'm doing the positivity exercise, my days are always so much better. And it's that whole law of attraction thing. I think when you're focused on the positive, you experience the positive, and more positive things happen. And again, this isn't about not seeing that darkness and negativity exists, but it's about looking at every situation and seeing that actually within every situation, there's always something positive in there to look at. An example I use, which isn't particularly related to parenting, but I'll connect it somehow, is like there might be a person in your life who's really unkind, just brings you a lot of anxiety, says unkind things, is just not a nice person, and they say something to you and that upsets you, which you let it upset you, and then you say, well, you know what, she's really nice to her animals, and her animals are really lucky to have her in their life, and she's such a good pet owner, and you know what, like their life wouldn't be as good without her, and how wonderful that there are creatures on the world that she cares for so much. So you're trying to shift, not acknowledge this bad in the situation, but shift your focus to what's positive. So what can you use as an example? Phoenix, he started when he really needs to go to the bathroom, he hits if he doesn't get there soon enough, and it's a real frustration, and you can tell it's frustrating, and so he'll hit, and obviously hitting's not allowed, and it frustrates me as well sometimes when you're like, can you not hit? That's not great. But the good thing is that he's working out ways to communicate that he needs to use the toilet, and he doesn't use nappies anymore, which is awesome. And now we get to learn to channel that frustration or that uncomfortable feeling into something different. So if he does go to, which he's actually a lot better at now because we've talked about how we use our words for it, but it was that learning opportunity and that positivity of like, yay, he wants to use the toilet, he just doesn't know how to express it yet, as opposed to, oh my God, he's hitting, he's such a terrible child, you know? You see? And there are lots of ways to do that. And open-mindedness. This is a good one, and I imagine that it's especially poignant for kids, older children as well, who have their own opinions and all that kind of stuff. But again, this is not about suspending judgment, so to speak, but it's about being so open-minded that you really practice seeing everything from as many points as possible, and you actually sit with the open-mindedness that things could be right. It's suspending disbelief, really. It's not a stretch for me to think that aliens are real or anything, so I won't use that as an example. But in terms of like politically, it can be really difficult because there are some things that I really fundamentally think are wrong, and like yucky behavior and all that kind of stuff, but like a really good exercise is to really try and go into the mind and of those people who are on the different political side from you or wherever, and really try and understand and think about how for them what they believe is right, or what they believe, how they believe what they believe, and why that's their truth. And this doesn't mean that you just accept things like racism or misogyny because that's not appropriate, but it's about taking some time to try and understand why people think the way that they think and why that's their lived truth, even if it's not something that's acceptable within wider society. Do you know what I mean? It's not about accepting it, it's about trying to understand why that happens, because I think once you get to the point where you can really go deeply into why people think, feel and act the way they do from a place of like warmth, that's where some really good change can happen. Often just being super close-minded and just everybody's wrong and they're all dicks, that's not like going to make a lot of change. It's just going to create more animosity. But yeah, I could be wrong about that, but that's kind of what I see. And with parenting, there's so many different, like, you get told so many different, like, there's so much different advice out there, right? And like, there's so many different ways of parenting. And again, there's so many ways that I'm like, I wouldn't do that in my house or whatnot. But if you're having a really difficult situation where your child really needs something and you can't quite meet them where they need to be met, that it's a really good time to practice that open-mindedness and really search outside your sphere of like parenting acceptability or parenting styles or whatever, and go and search in other places. Like, I imagine a lot of you are kind of like Waldorfy parents, so there's that kind of aesthetic and like fundamental belief system that you've got there, but maybe something's not quite working. And I always think, like, I really want Phoenix to go to a Waldorf school, but he might get to like 7, 8, 9 and it just not work for him. And that's when it's like, well, maybe we need to try Montessori. Maybe he needs to just go to a state school. Maybe he needs to be homeschooled. There's that kind of like practicing to keep your mind open. And it's kind of like not just relying on facts and data and all that kind of stuff, but to just be so open-minded that anything's possible. And it's not to live like that forever, because judgment's important and it's part of being a well-rounded, well-grounded human being. But it is good to practice open-mindedness and sometimes think, oh, that's right, I don't know everything. Even though you might know a lot of stuff, sometimes knowing a lot of things doesn't actually mean that you have the right knowledge for the time. Anyway, I'm kind of waffling there. It's getting to the end of the video and I'm getting to need some coffee. Yes, so, and then the harmony thing. Harmony is just about integrating them all. Can you spend a whole day where you do your right thinking? Can you do the willing exercise, whichever one you've decided to do, the clicking or the reading the book in a certain way? Can you do the feeling where you keep your, like, it's like the tarot card temperance, where everything's kind of going up and down and finding that balance throughout the day and really focusing on when that balance happens and allowing the emotions to come up and down, but then also trying to bring it into harmony. Can you also be, well, we got will, positivity, open-mindedness. Oh yeah, positivity. Are you able to spend the day finding the good in every situation, or making sure that you're surrounding yourself with things that make you feel happy, and acknowledging that there are some bad things, but from a bad thing, there are some positive things around it if you look at it objectively. And can you be open-minded? Can you be tested? Can you read something in the newspaper and suspend disbelief for a minute and be like, maybe they're right, and actually sit there for a few moments and accept that as somebody's truth, and then come back to yourself and go, I don't know, and continue on your day. And yeah, bring it all together and be all harmonious and stuff. So this video wasn't really about removing yourself from your children to be a good mother and all that kind of stuff. I feel like bringing your children into these activities is really important. If they're older, you can talk to them about what you're doing when you're looking at your when you're looking at your hair tie. You can give them a hair tie and see if they can practice it too. I wouldn't go into the deep, like, spiritual fundamentals of it, because kids know this stuff anyway. They don't need to be explained. They don't need it explained to them. You could definitely do a lot of these with children, but again, you just have to be mindful about how you bring it to them. I wouldn't do them with Phoenix, really. He's too young, and he does his own mindfulness practice as a 3-year-old anyway. I'll just let him get on with it. Yeah. Hopefully that was enlightening enough for you, and I'd really love you to see if you can give it a go. I'll recommend some books that we've talked about Postnatal Depletion Cure. Did we? If I didn't, it's great. You should read it. How to Know Higher Worlds by Rudolf Steiner. You can obviously buy this book, or you can listen to it on rudolfsteineraudio.com, or you can read it on Rudolf Steiner Archive. But if you do that, read it on Rudolf Steiner Archive or listen to it, can you consider donating to, what is it? I think it's Steiner Press, the publishing companies, because